Has the war just begun? What if I told you the real war hasn't even started yet? You've seen the headlines. You've heard about the missiles. But what's coming next could be far more dangerous than anyone expected. Iran has just crossed a line Israel warned it never would. Cities are burning. Evacuation orders are out. But behind the scenes, something bigger is moving. Missiles are just the beginning. Why is Iran targeting news stations? Why did they warn civilians in Tel Aviv before their next strike? And why is America suddenly talking about bunker-busting bombs? In this video, we break down what's really going on and what's coming next. From secret talks in Geneva to shadow wars across Iraq. You're about to see why this conflict may explode beyond the Middle East. What's next in the Iran-Israel war? This is Combat Inside Alpha, and today, we uncover the next phase of a war that could change the balance of power in the region forever. Iran targets Israeli media. Psychological warfare begins. Just hours after Israel's oil refinery burned. Iran changed the game, not with more bombs, but with a message. Iran publicly threatened to target two major Israeli TV channels, Channel 12 and Channel 14. Not military bases, not infrastructure, the media. And here's the twist, they didn't just issue a threat. They posted evacuation warnings for the people of Tel Aviv and Jerusalem. This isn't just a military strike, this is psychological warfare. Iran is trying to rattle Israel from the inside, turning civilians into targets and journalists into soldiers. By threatening media networks, Iran is signaling that information is now a weapon. Controlling the story, silencing the enemy's voice, it's a tactic right out of the modern hybrid war playbook. Israeli officials responded immediately, calling it a terror tactic designed to create fear and chaos. But fear is exactly what Iran wants. So why go after TV stations instead of tanks? Because if you can break the public spirit, you don't need to win the battlefield. And now, as we speak, journalists in Israel are working in lockdown. Air raid sirens keep interrupting broadcasts. Viewers are glued to screens, not knowing if the next target will be the truth or the building that's telling it. Coming up next, we'll show you the exact cities under attack and how much worse it's about to get. Iran launches direct missile barrage, cities under fire. While the world was focused on oil refineries and TV stations, Iran launched something far more direct and far more deadly. In the early hours of the morning, waves of Iranian missiles struck multiple Israeli cities. Targets included Haifa, home to the damaged oil refinery; Beersheba, a strategic desert city; and Dimona, Israel's secretive nuclear zone. The Israeli Iron Dome intercepted dozens. But some missiles got through, causing massive explosions, building fires, and civilian injuries. Israel's military confirmed it. These are ballistic missiles, not short-range threats. Iran is going all in. Hospitals are on high alert. Emergency sirens echo through the cities. Schools are closed. Supermarkets are being emptied. And ordinary Israelis are being told to stay close to bomb shelters. This is no longer tit for tat. This is open warfare, and it's spreading fast. But the most alarming part? These strikes may not be about winning, but baiting Israel into overreacting. Because what Iran really wants might not be victory. It might be chaos, the kind that drags in the entire region. Coming up next, we turn to Washington. Why is the U.S. suddenly threatening Iran with bunker-busting bombs? And what happens if America joins the war? The U.S. threatens Iran, 2 weeks to de-escalate or else. While missiles fall in Israel and sirens wail across Iran, the next move may not come from the Middle East. It may come from Washington. Former President Donald Trump, now back on the world stage, has given Iran a clear, chilling ultimatum. You have 2 weeks to stand down or face consequences underground. That underground part? He's referring to Iran's nuclear bunkers, like Fordow, buried deep inside a mountain. And if the U.S. moves in, they'll likely bring bunker-busting bombs. This isn't posturing. U.S. satellites are already tracking Iran's nuclear movement. American warships in the Mediterranean have shifted positions. And defense analysts say the Pentagon has drawn up rapid strike options. But here's the danger. A U.S. strike on Iranian soil isn't just an escalation. It's a spark. And if it lands, every Iranian-backed group in the region could ignite. And they've already started to move. Reports say Iranian militias in Iraq have threatened to strike U.S. bases in retaliation. And in Syria, Iranian fighters are reinforcing key outposts. What started as missiles between two enemies could become a regional explosion involving America, Hezbollah, Iraq, and more. Coming up next, we head to Lebanon, where one of Iran's deadliest allies is watching from the shadows. Will Hezbollah enter the war next? Israel has already issued one warning. Will Hezbollah join the fight? Israel's red line is clear. As missiles fly between Iran and Israel, another question is haunting military planners in Tel Aviv. What is Hezbollah waiting for? Based in southern Lebanon, Hezbollah is Iran's most dangerous proxy, armed with over 150,000 rockets, many capable of hitting deep inside Israel. So far, they've held back. No major strikes, no movements across the border. But behind the scenes, Israeli intelligence says Hezbollah units have gone to high alert. That's why Israel sent a direct, public message. If Hezbollah enters this war, the gloves come off, meaning total retaliation, full-scale ground and air operations into Lebanon. And here's what makes this even more dangerous. Hezbollah isn't just a militia, it's embedded in Lebanon's government, its economy, its streets. A war with Hezbollah is a war with an entire country. Plus, if Hezbollah joins, so might Shiite militias in Iraq, Houthi rebels in Yemen, and Syrian militias already active near Israeli borders. This is how a two-country conflict turns into a regional firestorm. So the big question now is, what's holding Hezbollah back? Is it fear of Israeli retaliation? Or are they simply waiting for the perfect moment to strike, when Israel is stretched too thin to respond? Coming up next, we take you to the diplomatic front lines, where Iran is shaking hands with Europe while missiles still fly. Is this real diplomacy, or a smokescreen for more war? Geneva talks, diplomacy or deception, while rockets light up the skies over Haifa and Tehran. Across the continent, in Geneva, diplomats are shaking hands and whispering warnings. Iranian Foreign Minister Amir Abdullahian has arrived in Switzerland, meeting with leaders from France, Germany, and the UK. The goal? To de-escalate tensions and return to diplomacy. But here's the problem. As he talks about peace, Iran's missile units are still launching. Explosions still rock Israeli cities. This has led some analysts to ask, is Iran buying time or playing both sides? European officials are trying to avoid a larger war. They're calling for a ceasefire, a return to nuclear negotiations, and a pullback from proxy forces. But Israel isn't impressed. Officials there have accused Iran of using diplomacy as cover for military aggression. One senior Israeli official told reporters, "They talk peace in Geneva and fire missiles in Haifa. We're not fooled." The key issue: Iran still denies any military role in nuclear development, but intelligence reports suggest they've restarted uranium enrichment in Fordow and Natanz. So what happens if diplomacy fails again? European leaders say they have a few days to get results. If not, the next phase may involve U.S. airstrikes, Israeli invasion planning, and full regional mobilization. Coming up next, we break down how long this war could last and why Israel's top general just warned. This will not end quickly. Israel says this war won't end quickly, a long fight ahead. If you're waiting for a ceasefire tomorrow, don't hold your breath. Israel's top military commander, IDF Chief Eyal Zamir, just issued a stark warning. This is not a short campaign. This is going to last weeks. Why weeks? Because this war isn't just about missiles. It's about strategic endurance, international pressure, and regional dominance. Right now, Israel is mobilizing more reserve troops, activating additional air squadrons, and preparing for multi-front warfare, including cyber, land, and sea operations. At the same time, Iran has shown no sign of stopping. Its proxies are still active. Its missile factories are still running. And its leaders are already calling this a long struggle against the Zionist regime. So where does that leave us? Experts say we're entering a war of attrition, where neither side backs down, and both try to bleed each other over time. And that's what makes this phase so dangerous. Because the longer it lasts, the higher the chance it drags in others, the US, Lebanon, Iraq, even Gulf states. This isn't just a flare-up. It's becoming a regional reckoning. Coming up next, we follow the money. What's happening to oil prices, shipping routes, and global markets as the region teeters on the edge? Global markets rattle, oil, shipping, and economic fallout. Wars aren't just fought with missiles. Sometimes, they're fought with markets. In the days since Iran's missile strikes on Israel began, global oil prices have spiked by over 12% and climbing. Why? Because if this war spreads, it could shut down the Strait of Hormuz, the narrow waterway through which 20% of the world's oil flows daily. Iran has already hinted at this. Revolutionary Guard leaders say they'll block oil shipments if Israel or the U.S. escalates. And it's not just oil. Global shipping insurance rates are skyrocketing. Major tankers are being rerouted. And stock markets from New York to Tokyo are showing signs of stress. One analyst from J.P. Morgan put it bluntly: if Israel bombs Iran's nuclear sites, expect $150 oil minimum. For ordinary people, this means higher fuel costs, inflation rising again, and economic uncertainty spreading far beyond the battlefield. So while missiles explode in the Middle East, your wallet may feel the shockwaves in the coming weeks. But economic pain is just one part of the bigger strategy. Coming up next, we uncover how cyber attacks and information warfare are becoming frontline weapons, and why Iran may already be inside Israel's digital systems. Cyber war begins. Iran may already be inside Israel's systems. Missiles can destroy cities. But in today's war, the most dangerous attacks don't leave a crater. They leave a country in digital darkness. Intelligence reports now confirm Iran's elite cyber units have launched coordinated attacks on Israel's critical digital infrastructure. Targets include electric grids, airport networks, and even military communications systems. Earlier this week, flight delays hit Ben Gurion Airport with no clear technical cause. Just hours later, Israeli cybersecurity officials quietly admitted, "We're under digital attack." Iran's strategy is clear: create chaos without explosions, confuse emergency response systems, paralyze the digital heartbeat of Israeli life. And it's not one-sided. Israel is firing back, using its legendary Unit 8200 to breach Iranian satellite feeds and jam battlefield signals. But here's the scary part. Cyber war is invisible. There's no warning siren, no flash in the sky, only silence, and then failure. And as this digital warfare escalates, both nations now face a new risk: losing control of their own systems. One wrong line of code, and hospitals go dark, missiles misfire, or military secrets go live. This isn't science fiction anymore. It's happening now, and no one knows how far it'll go. Up next, we return to the ground war. What happens if Iran's proxies are fully activated, and this war turns into a forefront assault? Iran's proxy network, is a forefront war coming? So far, the missiles have come from Iran. But Iran doesn't fight alone. It fights through a web of proxies, trained, funded, and waiting for the green light. If they all activate, Israel could be facing a war on 4 fronts. Front 1, Lebanon, Hezbollah. With over 150,000 rockets, Hezbollah is Iran's strongest ally. They're watching the north and could strike deep into Israel at any moment. Front 2, Syria, Iranian militias. Tehran has spent years building military positions in Syria. Already, drones and artillery have been spotted near the Golan Heights. Front 3, Iraq, Shiite militias. Groups like Kataib Hezbollah are threatening to attack U.S. bases and Israeli-linked infrastructure. These are battle-hardened fighters, and they've been preparing for this moment. Front 4, Yemen, Houthi rebels. Armed with Iranian missiles and drones, the Houthis have already struck targets in Saudi Arabia and the UAE. Israel is now within range. For directions. For armies. One coordinated strike, and Israel could be fighting for survival on every border. That's why the IDF is now reinforcing northern and southern commands, holding emergency war games, and prepping anti-missile systems around nuclear sites. This isn't just about Tehran anymore. This is about the entire regional architecture of war being activated. And if that happens, no missile defense system, not even the Iron Dome, can handle that many threats at once. Coming up next, we take you inside Israel's war room, where military leaders are planning preemptive strikes that could determine the outcome of this war before the next missile even launches. Inside Israel's war room, planning the next strike before it lands. Some wars are won on the battlefield, but this one, it might be decided before the next missile even leaves the launch pad. Right now, deep beneath Tel Aviv, Israel's military war room is fully activated. 24/7 intel streams, satellite feeds, enemy movements tracked by the second. Their mission? To predict and preempt. To hit targets before Iran or its proxies can strike first. According to classified leaks, the IDF has drawn up kill lists of key proxy commanders, strike packages for nuclear sites in Fordow and Natanz, and deep airstrike routes over Syria and Iraq if the U.S. greenlights them. The Israeli Air Force, one of the most advanced in the world, is on high alert. F-35s, drones, electronic warfare systems, all standing by for orders that may come within hours. A senior defense source said, "We can't wait to be hit. We have to hit first, fast, hard, and without hesitation." This includes targeting Hezbollah missile depots in southern Lebanon, drone facilities in western Iran, and command centers inside Damascus. But here's the danger. Every preemptive strike carries a calculated risk that it triggers something bigger. Hit the wrong site, kill the wrong commander, and you don't just strike back. You escalate the war into something no one can control. Coming up next, we turn to the civilians. How are ordinary Israelis and Iranians surviving this growing nightmare? And what does life look like under the shadow of war? Civilians in the crossfire, life under the shadow of war. Behind the rockets, beyond the war rooms, are millions of civilians, ordinary people caught between history and horror. In Tel Aviv, families are sleeping in bomb shelters. Children wear backpacks that double as body armor. Supermarkets are running low on water, batteries, and medicine. Across the country, Israel's Home Front Command has issued alerts for immediate shelter drills, school closures, and rolling power blackouts in targeted areas. Over in Iran, the situation is just as tense, but different. While airstrikes haven't hit Tehran directly, people are bracing. Hospitals are stocking supplies. Black markets for fuel and cash are rising. And there's a growing fear that if nuclear sites are hit, cities like Isfahan or Qom could be in the line of fire. Then there's the psychological war. Both nations are flooded with misinformation, panic rumors, and fake missile alerts. Social media feeds are filled with videos of explosions, live broadcasts from rooftops, and messages like, "Where is it safe now?" In times like this, the line between soldier and civilian disappears. Every home is a front line. Every night is a countdown. Yet despite the fear, something else is rising: resilience. Volunteers handing out supplies, doctors working double shifts, communities coming together, even under rocket fire. But how long can they hold on? Coming up next, we dive into the information war itself. How disinformation, hacked news feeds, and deepfakes are becoming weapons in this modern battlefield. War of the mind, disinformation, deepfakes, and media manipulation. In today's wars, the battlefield isn't just land and air. It's your screen, your feed, your mind. As missiles fly and leaders talk peace, a second war is raging, one made of images, videos, and viral lies. Iranian and Israeli cyber units are now fighting for control of the narrative. Every explosion comes with two stories, one told on state TV and one told on social media, often edited, blurred, or entirely fabricated. Fake alerts, AI-generated photos, deepfake audio of leaders declaring war or calling for surrender. Just this week, a video showing Israel's Iron Dome failing went viral. Except, it wasn't real. It was 3D simulation footage from a video game, reposted with a fake CNN logo. Meanwhile, Iranian state media aired clips claiming Israeli civilians were fleeing en masse. This isn't a glitch. It's strategy. Disinformation floods the zone, making truth harder to find and easier to doubt. And when people doubt everything, they panic. That panic is a weapon. Governments are now racing to control the digital battlefield, censoring fake accounts, blocking foreign servers, and issuing real-time fact checks to their own citizens. But in the fog of war, one truth remains clear. In modern conflict, controlling the story can be as powerful as firing the first shot. Coming up next, we lay out the possible futures. Best case, worst case, and the one scenario no one is prepared for. 3 futures: ceasefire, war, or something far worse. So where does this all go? Missiles, diplomacy, cyber attacks. The Iran-Israel conflict is moving fast, but no one knows how it ends. Here are the 3 most likely futures, according to intelligence analysts and military planners. Scenario 1. Fragile ceasefire. Under pressure from Europe and the US, both sides agree to a temporary ceasefire. Iran tones down proxy attacks. Israel halts preemptive airstrikes. Secret negotiations resume in Geneva. It's not peace. It's a pause. But it buys the world time and keeps the region from going up in flames. Scenario 2. Prolonged regional war. More likely, this war turns into a slow-burning, multi-front conflict. Israel fights Iran-backed militias in Lebanon, Syria, and Iraq. Iran avoids direct invasion, but keeps the pressure on. U.S. forces are pulled deeper into the chaos. It drags on for weeks, maybe months, destabilizing economies, threatening oil routes, and leaving thousands dead or displaced. Scenario 3. Catastrophic escalation. And then, there's the scenario no one wants to talk about. Israel strikes Iran's nuclear facilities. Iran responds with long-range missiles, proxy swarm attacks, and cyber blackouts. The U.S. joins in, and suddenly, you don't have a regional war anymore. You have a Middle East-wide conflict, one that could reach as far as Saudi Arabia, Turkey, the UAE, and beyond. The scariest part? Each of these futures could begin with one wrong decision, made in the next 48 hours. Coming up next, we analyze the red lines, the final tipping points that could either halt the war or trigger the unthinkable. Red lines, the final triggers that could ignite a firestorm. In every war, there are lines you don't cross. Lines that, once breached, leave no way back. Right now, both Israel and Iran are walking right up to those red lines. Some say they've already stepped over. Let's break down the key red lines that could turn this conflict into something far more dangerous. A direct strike on Iran's nuclear facilities. If Israel bombs Fordow, Natanz, or Iraq, Iran will almost certainly retaliate, not with words, but with missiles, militias, and cyber attacks. That's not just war, that's nuclear brinkmanship. Hezbollah fully enters the war. The moment Hezbollah launches a full-scale barrage from Lebanon, Israel will treat it as a declaration of war from a state actor, not a militia. This triggers a massive Israeli ground operation, likely into southern Lebanon, maybe even into Syria. U.S. military enters directly. If American bombers or special forces hit Iranian soil, Iran could activate all regional proxies at once, unleashing a multi-country assault on U.S. and Israeli assets. It becomes America's war, not just Israel's. A major civilian mass casualty event. If a missile hits a hospital, school, or refugee center, either side, it could collapse diplomatic efforts overnight. Public outrage would force military escalation. No leader could hold back their response. And the truth is, we're closer to these red lines than ever before. Every drone, every siren, every late-night call in the war room could be the moment the fuse is finally lit. Up next, we go beyond the battlefield. What role is religion, ideology, and history playing in fueling this fight? Because this war isn't just political, it's deeply personal for both nations. History, religion, and identity, the deeper war beneath the missiles. To understand why this war is so dangerous, you have to go deeper than the headlines. Because for Iran and Israel, this isn't just a conflict over land or power. It's a war of beliefs, ideologies, and history that refuses to stay buried. For Israel, it's about survival. A small nation surrounded by enemies, born in the shadow of the Holocaust, built with the promise. Never again. To Israeli leaders, Iran isn't just another rival. It's an existential threat, a regime that openly calls for Israel's destruction. That threat isn't taken lightly. Not after Munich. Not after the Yom Kippur War. Not after decades of rockets, stabbings, and suicide bombs. For Iran, it's about resistance. To Iran's Islamic leaders, Israel is not just a nation, it's the symbol of Western domination in the heart of the Muslim world. Supporting groups like Hezbollah, Hamas, and others is part of a bigger vision. A unified Islamic resistance front, with Iran at its center. And in that vision, there's no place for Israel to exist. At decades of wars, covert assassinations, proxy battles, and cyber sabotage. And you get a conflict where every missile is loaded with history. This is why diplomacy is so hard. This is why the violence never truly ends. Because beneath the tanks and treaties is a war of identity. And when wars are fought over belief, logic doesn't always win. Coming up next, we turn to the wild card. What if Russia or China step in? Will the global powers back Israel? Iran or themselves? Russia, China, and the global wild cards. Who's really pulling strings? As Israel and Iran lock horns in the desert, Two silent players are watching from a distance, with enormous power and massive stakes. Russia and China, two nations with global ambitions, nuclear weapons, and a long history of shaping Middle East conflicts from behind the scenes. Russia, fueling fire or calming flames. Vladimir Putin has stayed quiet, but not neutral. Russia has long supported Iranian arms sales, military operations in Syria, and cyber collaboration with Tehran. They also despise U.S. influence in the region. So every missile that weakens American allies, Russia sees it as strategic gain. But here's the twist. Putin also wants to look like a peacemaker. He's now offering to host ceasefire talks in Moscow, a move that puts pressure on the West, not Iran. China. Quiet moves, big impact. China just brokered a deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia last year, a diplomatic miracle few saw coming. And now, China is urging both sides to de-escalate, while quietly securing oil deals and protecting trade routes through the Persian Gulf. They don't want a war. They want stability, but on their terms. And if things spiral out of control, expect Beijing to use its economic muscle, UN power, and regional allies to steer the narrative. So what's the risk? If the war expands, and America backs Israel, while Russia and China tilt toward Iran, this conflict could shatter the global balance. Not just World War III talk, but a world where alliances are rewritten, superpowers confront, and the Middle East becomes the chessboard of global dominance. Coming up next, we move to the final act. What's the one thing that could stop this war cold? Not a missile, not a tank, but an internal collapse from within. The collapse within could unrest end the war before the bombs do? What if this war doesn't end with a treaty? Or a final missile? What if it ends? Because one side falls apart from the inside? Inside Israel, unity under pressure. In Israel, we're usually unites. But this time, there's growing tension between the military and political leadership. Mass protests just weeks before the war were calling for the prime minister's resignation. Critics accused him of pushing judicial reforms that sparked civil outrage. Now, as rockets fall, many Israelis still feel torn. Support the war or question the government. If the conflict drags on, public opinion could turn. Soldiers may start to resist orders. And political fractures could force Israel to pull back, or even change leadership mid-conflict. Inside Iran, cracks in the regime. Meanwhile in Iran, the regime may look powerful on paper. But beneath the surface, it's shaking. Just last year, massive protests rocked the country after the death of Mahsa Amini. Young people, women, workers, millions took to the streets, risking prison and worse. Now, with sanctions tightening, prices soaring, and war draining resources, those same people are angrier and bolder. Intelligence sources suggest minor mutinies in the Revolutionary Guard. Some military commanders are even rumored to be questioning Supreme Leader Khamenei's war strategy behind closed doors. If mass protests return, and they will out, Iran's leaders might face a new enemy, their own people. So here's the twist. It may not be a drone or a cyber attack that ends this war. It may be a protest sign, a resignation, a revolution. Coming up next, we prepare for the final chapter. One last question remains. Are we heading toward peace or preparing for the next, even bigger war? 30 days from now, peace or a bigger war? Where will we be in 30 days? The missiles may pause, talks may resume, but the damage has already reshaped the Middle East, and the world knows it. Oil markets are unstable, global supply chains are shaken, and superpowers are picking sides in ways that could redraw alliances for the next 50 years. Israel may be preparing for the long haul, mobilizing reserves and fortifying its cities. Iran may be rearming in silence, waiting for the next opening, the next provocation, the next move. But here's what military analysts and historians agree on. How the next 30 days unfold could determine the next 30 years of global security. Will diplomacy hold? Will one final strike push everything over the edge? Or will a secret agreement, the kind we never hear about until years later, quietly end it all? There's no clear answer. But one thing is certain. The world is watching. The stakes are rising. And for the first time in decades, a regional war could go global. Next up, the final point. A powerful closing message about what this war means, not just for governments or generals, but for humanity. Beyond war, a final message to the world. In every war, there are soldiers. There are strategies. There are sides. But behind every missile is a mother holding her child. Behind every bunker is a family praying it doesn't collapse. Behind every strike or retaliation is a heartbeat. This isn't just about Iran or Israel. It's about us, all of us, watching from screens, reading headlines, and hoping we never wake up to sirens of our own. We live in a world more connected than ever before. Yet we still speak through bombs, through threats, through fear. And the terrifying truth? It only takes one wrong move, one misunderstood message, one accidental strike, to spark a fire we can't put out. So as world leaders talk peace or plan war, the real question is, will we learn? Will we stop writing history in blood and start writing it in dialogue? Because if we don't, it won't just be Tel Aviv or Tehran that burns. It could be all of us. Stay informed, stay human, and remember, war is not just news. It's lives. If this message moved you, share it. Let the world know what's at stake. Subscribe for deep, honest analysis, not just noise. Turn on notifications for real updates as this crisis unfolds.